Okay, I have a confession to make. I kind of like plants. A lot. And would like to thank all of you who have watched my plant-centered videos where I have stuck GoPros to tumbleweeds, hugged trees in the Amazon, and visited the largest and oldest aspen grove on Earth. But today is going to be a real treat, as I take you with me to see one of the rarest plants on Earth. To see this plant, we will have to go halfway up Mauna Kea on the big island of Hawaii, where the air is cool and dry, a far cry from what most people think of when they think of these islands. Up here is a little fenced-in garden where we can see Ahinahina, the Hawaiian Silversword. Make sure that I don't have any gorse on my shoes. Oh, it just opens. Okay, I'm so excited. I don't know what I'm going to react when I see a Silversword. Oh! I see one! It's in the distance. There they are! Oh! They are silver. They're beautiful. Oh, this is exciting. Oh, I'm so excited. This is like everything I've dreamed of for years. It's a Silversword. Oh, it's gorgeous. It is a glorious plant. So this is the Hawaiian Silversword. I'm so excited. I have wanted to see this miraculous little plant for years. I think I read about them in a Ranger Rick magazine, gosh, I don't want to say 20 years ago. Oh, they're glorious. I love this. This makes me so happy. Oh, I want to cry. There is a little bit of a tear in my eye. I think I'm going to cry. This is so pretty. It is very hard to describe this almost alien-looking plant. The leaf color is like nothing I have ever seen. They are a member of a floral radiation event where a single plant in the sunflower family, likely from the Pacific coast of North America, arrived and became dozens of species, all filling different ecological niches. Some actually still looking kind of like sunflowers and not have the whole yucca bromeliad thing the Ahinahina has going on. Ahinahina grew on the windswept volcanic slopes for many years, sometimes for as many as 40, before forming a tall flowering stalk with thousands of individual flowers to attract pollinators. After this, the plant dies, releasing a bunch of seeds into the environment to carry on the lineage. However, there was a time when it seemed this plant was going to disappear forever, and only through extraordinary conservation effort has survived, which makes this an ideal species to discuss how conservationists go about protecting endangered plants, an important topic as some 40% of plant species are currently threatened with extinction. Once quite common on the upper slopes of Mauna Kea above the tree line, Ahinahina marked the uppermost plant community on Hawaii. Unfortunately, by the 1970s, only a few remained, growing from a sheer volcanic cliff face. How this happened is due to one of many conservation concerns, that while it affects animals, plants are particularly susceptible because they are stuck in one place: predation. Plants are the primary producers of essentially all terrestrial ecosystems, and so other organisms consume them to get their energy. But growing on the windswept volcanic slopes of Mauna Kea, Silverswords never really had to contend with any sort of major herbivores. Humans, though, changed that by introducing many hoofed mammals that happily munched on these strange alpine plants, until there was a population of around 40 clinging to existence on the cliff faces of a remote gulch. Sadly, many other Hawaiian plants have suffered a similar fate, such as the many species of lobelioids native to the archipelago, such as this haha, which were devoured by non-native herbivores and driven so close to the edge of extinction their natural pollinator, the EEV bird, seems to have forgotten their evolutionary partnership and no longer pollinates the flowers their curved beak is adapted to fit into. Being unable to move also makes plants particularly at risk from disease. While plants are not directly coming into contact at parties and giving each other viruses, they cannot move to get away from an outbreak. On the Hawaiian Islands, 2 fungal pathogens are decimating one of the 2 dominant native canopy trees, the Ohia lehua. These beautiful trees are critical for the Hawaiian watershed, a keystone species in native ecosystems, and an important cultural symbol to the Hawaiian people. Then, around 2009, they started dying, quickly going from a healthy tree to a dead snag in just a few days. The cause of this rapid ohia death was identified as being caused by 2 species of ceratocystis fungus, which invades the tree and cuts off the flow of water to the branches. These 2 fungi likely arrived as part of the horticultural trade, because people living in Hawaii want to keep importing random tropical plants. Being rooted to the spot can also make getting offspring across the landscape difficult, which is why many plants form tasty fruit to bribe more mobile animals to carry their seeds far and wide. However, in degraded ecosystems, those critical seed dispersers may no longer be around for plants to employ their services. For example, plants like Dispilio, a common understory plant in Hawaiian forest, has bright red berries to attract the attention of several Hawaiian thrushes, which ate the berries and dispersed the seeds. But now only 2 such thrushes still exist, and only one, the omao of Hawaii, is somewhat common at higher elevation. Outside the range of the omao and puaiohi, native fruiting plants are reliant on the community of non-native birds, which is not ideal as non-native birds also like to disperse the seeds of non-native plants, which often have attributes to make them more likely to be dispersed, such as better nutrients and longer fruiting seasons. These invaders then can outcompete the natives for sunlight and nutrients, as plants can be quite nasty when claiming a spot in the sun. Hawaiian plants, though, do have the fortune of not dealing with some of the things that endanger plants in, say, the North American Southwest, where some species can only grow on specific soil types, known as edaphic endemics, or have to deal with the complexities of protecting species in a matrix of federal, state, and private land. However, not all differences between plant and animal conservation make plant conservation more challenging. Some do make it easier. In 1973, 3 of the last Ahinahina flowered, and so the seeds of these plants were collected in order to try and propagate the seeds in a greenhouse, and then outplanted in sheep-proof enclosures. By 1976, outplanted Ahinahina were flowering. The Ahinahina were lucky, though, to at least have a population of 40. On the summit of Kilauea in the early 20th century, a single individual, Kilauea ha kuahivi, was found, an endling. The plant had basically gone extinct without anyone really noticing, probably through a combination of invasive herbivores and the extinction of several nectar-feeding honeycreeper birds that pollinated the flowers. The last tree died in the 1930s. However, that wasn't the end of the species, as here I have footage of one growing and flowering today. One huge advantage of plant conservation over animal conservation is you do not need fancy lab equipment and billions of dollars to clone them. You just need a cutting of an individual. Then, with the right conditions, that cutting should become a clone of the original. People in China figured this stuff out like more than 4,000 years ago. A few cuttings of that endling were grown and outplanted around Kilauea, and so we have some Kilauea ha kuahivi today, though they rarely produce viable seeds and seem fully reliant on human conservationists. Not ideal, but the species lives, I guess. What I want you to take away from all my blabbering is essentially plant conservation is very similar to animal conservation, though their biology can mean they are in some ways a little more difficult to preserve than animals, but also, in many ways, so much easier. I mean, you don't have to go out and trap them to change transmitter batteries so you can find them again, because they shouldn't migrate across a continent. However, there is one enormous challenge to plant conservation over animal conservation: lack of awareness, which results in significantly fewer funds to do critical botanical conservation work. Plants, despite being essential to life and our whole civilization thing, somehow take the back seat in conservation. The general population has a pretty apathetic view of plants, and in academia, students receive much more animal, and let's face it, human-based education of biology, which is translated into fewer botanists or even basic plant knowledge. Plants are just the set dressing for the dynamic lives of animals in a National Geographic special. This general lack of interest or awareness of plants might be partially due to how we perceive the world. Back when we were out on the savannas, you needed to see the lion in the grass. This possibly intrinsic bias, known as zoochauvinism, did keep us safe or help us find prey, but today is something we should work to overcome. We are living in a time when a large number of botanists are set to retire with no new generation to replace them, which will doubtlessly lead to a loss of knowledge, right when it is most important for us to use that knowledge. Will we lose the ability to detect tipping points in botanical communities? Will a lack of plant specialists mean we will be unable to find a way to feed the billions of people on this planet? Like, I think it sounds sort of silly in a world full of problems, climate chaos, bigotry, insane wealth inequality, and wars to be like, we are doomed because of anti-plant bias. It sounds kind of nuts, but like plant specialists are more important than most of us give them credit. So how do we make plants a priority and unlock those conservation funds they desperately need? Well, first off, we need to foster plant awareness. Doesn't that sound nice? I want to foster plant awareness. Then, we need to find a way to make plants relevant in other fields, from psychology to political science, engineering to English, especially encouraging the critical role plant research has in the important fields of non-native plant research and paleoclimatology. Fortunately, at least biology students are generally quite receptive of the idea of plant education. Returning to islands like Hawaii, the homogenized communities of non-native plants replacing all the odd-looking endemics actually seem to increase apathy to plants, so another reason to restore native ecosystems and not bring more random orchids. Finally comes the role of social media, which this very video exists as an insignificant part of, using personal narratives between people and plants to get that sweet, sweet engagement that will help fix the world. Hopefully, watching me go up to see Ahinahina and tearing up when I laid eyes on them was personal enough for you. So yeah, I think the research indicates you need to share this video or civilization will crumble. Obviously that is ridiculous, though it would be really cool if some future botanist was inspired by this random video on the inner tubes. Anyway, thanks for watching. I have more videos covering plants in this playlist, and I guess tell me if you have any stories about your personal connection to some plant. Bye!